Your Legislators is made possible by the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. From developing best practices that help farmers better protect our natural resources to the latest innovations in corn-based plastics, Minnesota corn farmers are proud to invest in third-party research, leading to a more sustainable future for our local communities. Minnesota Farmers Union, standing for agriculture, working for farmers. On the web at mfu.org.
Good evening and welcome to this week's version of Your Legislators. My name is Barry Anderson. I'll be your host and moderator for this one-hour conversation about the important public issues facing the people of the state of Minnesota. I want to remind you, our viewers, that this is your program and you are invited to call in your questions at 800-726-3178. That's 800-726-3178. Or send in your questions to our distinguished panel of guests at yourtv@pioneer.org. And we're also on Twitter at Your Legislators. That information's on your screen in case you didn't write it down as I was talking. As we do each week, we have a distinguished panel of guests that will address those questions, and we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. We rely on those guests to help unravel the mysteries of St. Paul, and I anticipate that we'll be doing a great deal of that this evening. Let's begin by inviting our veteran legislator on the panel this evening, Representative Alice Hausman, who has been on our program on many occasions over the last few years. We've always appreciated Representative Hausman. She's been one of those representatives that when some committee comes up and we can't find a senator or representative, we call her. She's always been gracious and willing to join us to help explain what's going on at the legislature. So we're delighted to have you again this evening, Representative Hausman, and maybe you could tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, your history, your service in the legislature, and anything else you think they should know about you. The floor is yours.
Yes, it might be helpful for people to know I represent a couple of districts in St. Paul and some suburban cities, the cities of Falcon Heights, Lauderdale, and most of Roseville. So I'm mostly suburban, and if you've been to the State Fair or the Rosedale Mall, you've been in my district. Right now, I am chairing the House Housing, Finance, and Policy Committee, and I'm also on transportation. Those are the two where I spend a huge amount of my time, housing and transportation. For a number of years, I chaired capital investment, so that was building infrastructure all over the state is a big part of what I have been doing. I was the House author of both the Blue Line and the Green Line. And the Bell Museum, and what I've always said is the big things take a lot of time. They're complicated, and sometimes they've been vetoed by governors. And the point is, you don't give up. If you're convinced it's the right thing to do, the big things take a long time, and you don't give up.
It's interesting, Representative Hausman, that you mentioned the Bell Museum, because I think that is a very much underappreciated asset in Minnesota. And if some of our viewers haven't had the opportunity to visit the Bell Museum, they should go there. And we'll even give you 15 seconds to tell us to agree with me on that point.
Yes, I have to tell you, our forebears in 1872, the legislators in Minnesota established it. They knew in 1872 we should preserve our natural history. And they were quite specific in terms of how we were going to preserve it, that it had to have the right air and all the right handling so it was well protected, and they'd give the responsibility to the University of Minnesota. They were very, very specific about it. So it's just so that you understand the vision of our forebears in 1872, who knew that this natural history should be preserved. So that is our state's Natural History Museum.
Well, there you go. Also joining us this evening, another veteran legislator who has been with us on many occasions, and another member of the legislature who has come to the rescue of this program from time to time when we've needed a guest, Senator Gary Dahms from Redwood Falls. Senator Dahms, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Barry, and I am Senator Gary Dahms from Redwood Falls, Minnesota, which is in southwest Minnesota, and I represent Senate District 16, which are the counties of Brown County, Redwood, Lyon, Yellow Medicine, Lacoparo, and part of Renville. prior to coming into the Senate, I was a county commissioner and owned an insurance agency in Redwood Falls. In the Senate this year, I chair the Commerce Committee. I vice chair the Ag Committee. Also, I serve on Housing and serve on the Capital Bonding Committee.
Also joining us from Eden Prairie, District 48, Senator Steve Cwodzinski. Senator, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Barry. I taught American government and American history for 33 years. In 2016, I decided to practice what I preached and ran for state senate and began my term in my service in 2017. I represent Eden Prairie and Minnetonka, half of Minnetonka, and I'm on the Education Committee, the Environmental Committee, local government, and I'm going to take Alice's advice and never give up on me pushing civics. And no matter how discouraged I get, I've been trying to get civics education required as a senior, junior class in order to graduate for 6 years. And Senator Dahms and I always talk. Every time I see him, I ask him how many parades does he have in his district, and he always tells me some number in the 30s, and I envy him because I don't have one parade in my district, and so I'm envious of Senator Dahms.
Well, Senator Dahms would be happy to invite you to join him for some of those parades, I'm sure. But
no, he never has.
I'll give you a list, Senator. I'll give you a list.
Senator Cwodzinski was teaching in the Eden Prairie School District when the Minnesota Supreme Court made a visit there as part of our program of going to high schools and to law schools as well, but most relevantly to high schools. We had a tremendous visit to the Eden Prairie High School, and it was a great experience for the court, and I hope it was a great experience for the students. It is part of that emphasis on civics and government that you so aptly mentioned, Senator, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about that before the evening is done. Finally, last but certainly not least, from District 50B in St. Michael, Representative Lucero. Representative Lucero, we're delighted to have you on board. Introduce yourself to our viewers. Tell them a little bit about your background, experience, and day job, committees you serve on, anything else you think they need to know to understand what you're going to be talking about today.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you again. This is my second go around. And if my graphic says 50, then that's incorrect because the lettering is so small, I can't see it myself. But I serve 30B, which is the great cities of Albertville, St. Michael, Otsego, Hanover, and Dayton. And I've had the honor of serving in the legislature in the Minnesota House for the previous 8 years, serving my great community. And if you've been to the Albertville Mall, you have been to my district, just outside the 7-county metro area, northwest of the Twin Cities on Highway 94. The committees that I serve on, public safety, I've been on the public safety committee my entire time in office, all 8 years. I presently also serve on the Commerce Committee in the House and the Capital Investment Committee. My day job, I do cybersecurity for a living. I've been in the cybersecurity field for over 15 years. I'm also a licensed real estate agent and licensed general contractor. And my wife and I are both small business owners in the real estate field. So between real estate and cybersecurity and the legislature, I have a very full plate.
Cybersecurity, of course, that's not been a topic of conversation. Nobody's at all concerned about that, right? It hasn't surfaced as an issue anywhere. We could probably devote a full hour to talking.
Every headline is just a reinforcement of job security.
Yeah, no, it is a sensitive issue everywhere we go, and it's not going to get any less complicated. Well, let's start our program out this evening. We'll get to some questions from viewers in just a moment, but let's start our program out because we're getting near crunch time with the legislature. We're not quite there yet, but as we get closer to the end of the session, we hear more and more discussion about the capital investment bill and what it might look like. To the general public, we refer to that as the bonding bill. And we have a number of legislators here who have some background in that. Let's start with you, Senator Dahms, and then we'll go to Representative Hausman, and then to Representative Lucero, and then Senator Cwodzinski on the bonding bill. What do you see transpiring there? Anything that you'd like to advise our viewers of at this point? Senator Dahms, the floor is yours.
Well, this fall we went out and we did a bonding tour, and we visited various communities. I think we went out for 5 weeks, and usually those would be 4-day weeks. And so we did have a tour of the entire state, including the metropolitan and the inner city area. We visited probably about 200 different projects, and so now we've had two meetings in the Capitol here since we've been in session. And the first meeting was to go through the governor's budget. The last meeting, which was yesterday, we went through a lot of the asset preservation projects for the University of Minnesota and the State College, Minnesota State. So we've been out and we've looked at a lot of projects. Now the next step is we'll have a couple more meetings internally, and then we'll start putting together the bonding bill. And there's a lot of questions about how much the bonding bill will be, and I'm kind of thinking we're probably going to be somewhere in that 1 to 1.5 billion, maybe push 2 billion, but I would say that 2 would be probably the upper limit that we'll be at. But a lot of good projects. I think that the chair, Senator Bach, is looking at focusing a lot on asset preservation in this bonding trip. And so rather than looking at new buildings, we're looking at a lot of asset preservation for a lot of the buildings we have, especially in the colleges and the state colleges. So all in all, I think we'll have a pretty robust bill. We looked at a lot of great projects, both in Twin City area and outstate. So I think there's a lot of projects to do. There's probably, I'd say there's a good $6 billion in requested projects. So of course we probably do a little less than a third of that at the end of the system. But in the bonding bill, I'm sure like usual, it will be probably the last bill we do. That's kind of typical in an off year, non-budget year and a policy year. So I would assume that will be a bill we'll handle Saturday and Sunday, the last part of the session, but that remains to be seen.
Representative Hausman, let's talk about the bonding bill. There has been some concern about, I've had a couple of viewers who have expressed a concern or an interest in a new chemistry building on the campus of the University of Minnesota and wondering about the status of that. And I'm just wondering, I realize that this might not be right in your bailiwick now, but let's talk a little bit about the bonding bill and what you see might be happening there.
Yes, it's particularly the damage we have been doing to higher education that I'd like to talk a little bit about. I have been an outspoken critic of the governor rebranding the bonding bill as the Local Jobs and Projects Bill. That's how he has rebranded it. It used to be the exact opposite of that. If you had a project in capital investment, you had to demonstrate, if all the taxpayers in the state are going to pay for this, what is the regional or statewide significance of this? The opposite of local projects. And the moment the rebranding was done, there was an explosion of bill introductions with local projects. Those are earmarks. I will tell you early on, I learned about capital investment from people like Senator Langseth, Representative Leader, Greater Minnesota people who had a long history in infrastructure. And they understood that earmarking projects isn't a good idea, that it undermines the work of state agencies. And so I've just been very, very frustrated by that rebranding and the move to massive amounts of earmarks and local projects. They fight with, the big loser in this has been higher education. Because the more we do that, the less we do for asset preservation. The more we do that, the less we do for higher education academic facilities all over the state. Just a frustration in terms of how our culture has changed.
Representative Lucero, you're on capital investment. I believe you indicated bonding bill. Any observations about that? If you have anything to share with our viewers about the undergraduate chemistry building on the campus of the university, I'm sure they'd be interested in that too. But regardless of the specific projects, talk to us a little bit about the process and what you see happening with the bonding bill.
So in my 8 years in office, and Representative Hausman, I think, has been in office for 32 years, I have not served on any committees with her or crossed paths with her in any other legislation I don't think we've teamed on. But what she just said in regards to a philosophy of the bonding bill, I completely agree with. The entire purpose of capital investment should be the following. And by the way, I'm saying this as a first-time member of the capital investment. But I'm learning a lot on the committee, and having listened to many of the different bills The following philosophy is what should be taking place. And unfortunately, I don't see that's what's happening. And that is the state has assets across the state, such as prisons, such as college and university buildings, and historical society type buildings across the state, all different shapes, flavors, ages. And these buildings are depreciating. They're having roofs that need to be replaced. They have HVAC systems that need to be replaced. There could be different safety requirements that are now out of code that need to be brought up to date, a whole host of things. And when a state owns a building, like a prison, it is the state's responsibility to ensure that building is fixed and modern and operating efficiently. But when we see these mix of local projects, I'm just dumbfounded at what I've been seeing. So I wholeheartedly agree with Chair Hausman in that we really do need to prioritize for those statewide or regional significant type projects. That's what I'll be continuing to push for as a member of the Capital Investment Committee.
Senator Cwodzinski.
I'm not on bonding, but I've enjoyed what Alice and Eric just said because I think I tend to agree with that. And it seems like we've maybe gotten away from that, as Alice said, with more earmarks than investments in state-owned properties. I was at the U in the late 70s, early 80s. You had to wear your winter jacket in class. The buildings were just so cold and just run down. And I'm just glad to see that people that came before me saw fit to invest in the U, because now those buildings like Falwell Hall, you can sit in just a comfortable shirt and attend class, unlike when I was there. So, but I do appreciate your comment about higher ed too. The one I'm very grateful that Sandy Pappas, the chair in the Democratic caucus on bonding, has been very nice, always asking all of us, what do you need, what do you want? And so I think we're going to get a new roof here at Hennepin Tech in Eden Prairie out of the bonding bill, I hope. Anyways.
So let's talk about transportation. And Representative Hausman, let's start with you. That's a topic that you've certainly staked out over the course of your years in the legislature, and something that's a matter of present concern as well. I recognize that this is not a budget year, so typically you wouldn't have the big transportation bill that we will have next year, for example. But nonetheless, transportation issue seems to surface in non-budget years as well. So talk to our viewers a little bit about transportation priorities in this session.
So for me, they are different from what they might be for other members because I'm working with citizen groups who are trying to move us in very different directions with transportation alternatives. The one is All Aboard Minnesota, and they have done an economic study about the impact of intercity passenger rail. You know, corridors of commerce, we discovered the importance of linking roads in economic centers. But All Aboard Minnesota has done the economic study if we could connect those major cities with intercity passenger rail. We were successful last year in getting 10 million to match 32 million for a second train to Chicago, and so that is complete. But I have to say, in Minnesota, this has, for some strange reason, been a partisan issue. Rail has been a partisan issue. I serve on a Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission. When I mentioned this, now I'm talking Midwestern states. Yes, rail is exploding across the world, across the nation, but also the Midwest. We trail our Midwest economic competitors. Kansas, Texas, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, they are all moving ahead. They all understand it's part of the economic competitiveness and health of their region. When I mentioned this at this Midwest Commission, and I said in our state it's become partisan, I have to tell you, across the spectrum, I got these blank looks on the part of everyone. And finally, someone couldn't help it. They asked, well, how's that partisan? It isn't. In other Midwestern states, in Republican-governed states, they are actively moving forward, applying for federal grant money, and Minnesota is not. We are behind other Midwestern states, other economic competitors. So that's a frustration. And there's one other group. It is called the Citizen Advocates for Regional Transit, who believe that our transit planning in this area has been too much driven by local governments, by counties specifically. And what they're saying is that means they make the decisions about a transit system based on what's good for their county and not what's good for the region. And what they're suggesting is there's got to be a much more regional driven plan so that it makes sense for everyone in this entire metropolitan area. We used to say 7 county, it's beyond that. But we have so much to learn from the citizens who are trying to help us broaden our view of transportation alternatives.
So, Senator Dahms, in addition to the general discussion about transportation issues that might occur in this session and perhaps responding to some of the concerns that Representative Hausman has raised, we also have a viewer who's concerned from Renville County, your territory, who is very concerned about the intersection of Highways 212 and 71 and wants to know if that is going to be the subject of any attention. That viewer's concerned about safety issues there. I'm very familiar with that particular intersection. I've traveled that part of the state a great deal. So maybe we should respond to that viewer's concerns first, and then maybe more generally on the transportation issue. And I thought I'd save that specific for you because that's your territory. So the question's yours.
And I'm not sure, I'm not on the transportation committee, and so I'm not sure just what's happening with 212 and 71. I do know the intersection, certainly, and it is, it is a concern. I'm not sure I don't know that there's anything happening on that this year, but I shouldn't speak that there isn't because I'm not sure. But transportation in general, one of the things that we do need to make sure we get taken care of this year, and we have provided the funding within our transportation bill to do it. And we're going to have a lot of money coming from the federal dollars. And so there is a match that the state has to put up in order to get those dollars. And it's I think it's around $6 billion over a certain period of years. So we have made sure we've got the match put in order to get those dollars over a period of years. The other thing we're doing is increasing currently a portion, like 40% of the sales tax on tires, batteries, accessories, things like that, automobile parts goes back into the transportation account. And in our bill, we're going to move that to 100%. And by doing that, we'll bring in about another $200 million per biennium to put into transportation. And along with that, then we're increasing the amount that goes to the townships and the small cities. And in rural Minnesota, that's a very big issue. And so it would bring considerably more dollars into the transportation account across the board, which whether you're in Minneapolis or St. Paul or the rural areas, you would benefit from that. As far as transportation, I think Alice is correct. I think that there is a division on who supports what on that. And one of the concerns that a lot of us have is the cost that keeps following the trail of the transit system. And that cost is, when you look at the ridership, it's very low. When you look at the cost of each ride, it's very high. And so we've got the problem with the latest light rail that's being built with the few apartment buildings and things going on with that. So there's a lot of issues that need to be settled, and we need to figure out a way to get the usage of the light rail, get that usage up, because it's very, very costly under the current system. It is much more costly than what it is with the bus system. So that's kind of what I would see.
So, Senator Cwodzinski, transit issues, transportation, transit, all of that.
Yeah, Alice, I didn't know you were instrumental in starting the Green Line because the Green Line is planned to finish in my district. So I for years have said if we want to keep our young people that are going off to Chicago, New York, San Francisco, DC, for school, and they'd fall in love with the mass transit systems. They just go, why don't we have anything like this back in Minneapolis and St. Paul? And because this is what our young people want. they're going to live differently. They're going to live simpler. They're maybe going to try to get by with one car instead of a two-car family, and we're going to have to meet their needs. And they're going to want to live in cities that have dependable, safe, reliable mass transit. And so I know that the green line that ends in my district, the last 5 stops are in my district. At the end, they've built 1,000 apartments and condominiums right at the end line, and many of those are going to be affordable housing. And there's been pockets. Alice mentioned corridors of commerce. Boy, I can't think of a better phrase for that than light rail, because the pockets for retail and grocery stores and drug stores to meet the needs of these little mini communities that are going to be at each stop, I think is wonderful. But I know that both chambers passed almost unanimously an audit of, it was a year ago, the big price take from downtown to Eden Prairie was 1.9 billion, and now I think it's at 2.7. So we've got to do some homework to find out what went wrong during that process. But we'll get it right. It's good. It's good for the people, and keeping young people in our city, and people in Southwest Minnesota that hate the traffic in the cities will be able to park their cars in Eden Prairie and go to the Target field and go to concerts downtown and take advantage of all the wonderful opportunities downtown Minneapolis and St. Paul have to offer.
Representative Lucero, floor is yours. Transportation issues.
Yeah, so a few things that I would add is the first 4 years that I served in the House, I was on the Transportation Committee, and one of the things that I was talking about as a technologist back then was not that transit is partisan. It's not. Light rail is the problem. Transit includes light rail and buses. I'm a huge proponent of buses. I'm 100% opposed to light rail because it's a legacy technology. If we go back even a few more years, it wasn't 1.9 billion. It was slightly less than $1 billion was the estimated cost to build Southwest Light Rail. It's now approaching 3 billion. And the assumption is a hub and spoke model. Light rail assumes that people live in the suburbs and they want to transport themselves to some central hub. But what's been happening in the advent here of COVID, it doesn't matter for many professions where you are. It just matters that you're there. So working remote, flexible workforce, VPN technology is allowing people not to they don't want to move to the center core. They want to move to rural Minnesota, where there is a good pipeline bandwidth available for them to upload and download and work remote. And so light rail, once it's in the ground, it can't be moved. It can't adapt itself to shifting population lifestyle trends. Buses, on the other hand, can. If ridership goes down, they can make adjustments. Like the North Star rail here up near where I am through Elk River, it is an abysmal failure. It is hemorrhaging money with just abysmal ridership. And so that's what we need to focus on is people don't want to go to a central core. The things that I've been hearing from many of my constituents is the crime rate in Minneapolis. I've heard numerous times, people do not want to commute downtown. They do not want to go into any recreation activities downtown where they previously had quite heavily because of the fear of the violence and crime that's happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So we need to look at more efficient and future technologies, not continuing to look backwards to very costly legacy technologies.
Representative Hausman, I want to go back to you on this topic, and of course anyone else who wants to jump in should feel free to do so as well, because you've spent quite a bit of time studying it. When you talk about intercity rail, for example, Minnesota used to have a line that ran from the metropolitan area to Duluth. It was abandoned in 1986 because of low ridership issues, and I know that that's a line that's very much in the conversation about possibly restarting again. There's also discussion about a line from Rochester to the Twin Cities, and of course, as you mentioned earlier, the Twin Cities to Chicago. In addition to the transit and light rail issues, I'm just wondering if you can respond to some of the concerns about ridership issues and whether or not that's a concern here.
So by the way, all aboard has done the study of all of those corridors. There are 4 studies in the MnDOT plan, the one that they say has the absolute highest ridership projection is the one that goes south from the Twin Cities, as you suggested, and it ends up going to Duluth and Kansas City. And I will tell you in Des Moines, not Duluth, Des Moines
Duluth is
and
north,
Kansas
I think.
City.
I think we're clear on that.
Right. I'm sorry, Des Moines and the southern route they're moving. They're applying for federal funds. And so we'd better get on board or we're not going to be connected. But All Aboard Minnesota says that's the highest ridership. We make mistakes. The North Star corridor should absolutely have been connected to St. Cloud. That's where the population center is. That's where the college campuses are. So so it's the mistakes we make when we plan our routes. The North Star absolutely for ridership should have gone to Duluth. Here is the thing about subsidies that I think we never talk about. There's lots of attention to what people call, quote, subsidy of transit. We never talk about the subsidy of roads. There is no way that every car pays for the infrastructure, the roads and bridges in this state. In this transportation bill in the House, I believe there's $10 million for township roads. Nobody asks the volume of traffic on any of those township roads. Nobody asks that question. How many cars ride on those township roads? But we're putting $10 million of general fund money. That's a subsidy for those cars that are going to use that. I can recall, again, you learn from people like Representative Leader. He used to sit in his office and study all of the bridges. When we put 60 million in for local bridges, he said to me one time, Alice, some of those bridges are a culvert that serves one farm. So we make it sound when we say roads and bridges as though that's noble and that's not subsidy. It is subsidy, just as is transit.
All right. Well,
just like if it's all right, I'd like to make a comment.
Go right ahead, Representative Dahms. Yes.
And I think there's certainly a big difference between roads and bridges in rural Minnesota and light rail in the Twin Cities. And as Representative Lucero talked about, there's a big difference between light rail and the total package of transit. And when I talked earlier, I was talking transit, but really I should have been talking about light rail. But when you have light rail, it moves passengers, period. When you have roads and bridges, it does not only move automobiles and people, it moves goods and commodities. And if you want to get rid of roads and bridges in rural Minnesota, let's see what the metropolitan people are going to eat for food, because that's how we move our commodities into the processing plants, from the processing plants into the distributorships, and that is product that comes in and out of the Twin City area. When you have light rail, it moves one thing, it moves passengers, and I understand that that's important. And Representative Cwodzinski mentioned about a lot of young people like that process, and I understand that. But you're moving one commodity versus several when you start talking to roads and bridges. So just wanted to point that out.
Well, I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunity to, there are probably even more angles to this discussion that we haven't even covered. Senator Cwodzinski, I want to go to you with a question from a viewer from Lewiston who's concerned about nursing home issues and, adequacy of coverage. And this viewer is also concerned about a surcharge and wonders if some of the surplus can't be used for nursing home issues. So let's discuss, this is a broader topic than just nursing homes, but let's start there. Tell our viewer what you can about this topic.
Yeah, well, I think I'm speaking for all four of us when I say that compared with 4 years ago, I didn't hear about shortages in nursing homes or retirement homes or homes for people that can't maybe necessarily live on their own, and now all of a sudden, just in the last couple of years, we're hearing about shortages of staff, shortages of beds, shortages of facilities, and I just think as the baby boomers age, if we have a shortage now of these facilities and the people willing to work in these facilities, we're in for a pretty dire situation coming up. So we got to start making some pretty major investments and getting kids in high school to want to pursue a career in healthcare industry, make just be a livable wage instead of 12, 14, 16 bucks an hour, and do the right thing. I think I heard, God, was it a shortage of 20,000 workers or a shortage of 20 beds? I can't remember, but I heard that figure today from a constituent. It's a dire situation, and it's unsustainable, and we better get our heads together and solve this problem, because it's only going to get worse in the coming.
Representative Lucero, your thoughts on this issue?
So I do not serve on, and never have served on any of the committees that would have this jurisdiction or purview. So I'm definitely not a go-to person with details on this. But a related issue that does greatly impact our seniors is Social Security. And so one of the topics that I have received a number of feedback on is the tax on Social Security. I think Minnesota is only, I think it's less than 11. We were one of 11 states just a few years ago that still taxed Social Security. And I think it might be less than that now. I think it might be down to 4 or 5, something like that. But there is a great amount of stress, especially what we're seeing here with the inflation across the economy. People on fixed incomes, whether they live in nursing homes, senior living care, or if they live in their home, the stress of the radical, dramatic increases in cost, but yet fixed incomes with tax policy the way it is, and many of the other demands, is something that we definitely need to pass this year. Not reducing, but eliminating the tax on Social Security.
Representative Hausman, nursing homes and also the Social Security tax, if you want to address that. That is a question from a viewer in Milan as well. So to the extent the panel wants to address it, in the likelihood of that passing, now is a good time to do that as well. But I'm interested in your response on the nursing home issue and staffing concerns and reimbursement issues there. So
I think that is a vital concern that we really just absolutely have to take a look at. I mean, the workforce generally in a broad range of areas is affected, but when it has to do with caring for vulnerable people, for vulnerable populations, we feel it so much more. And so I think there's a strong feeling that somehow we need to figure out how to address it this legislative session.
Senator Dahms.
Well, I think that Senator Cwodzinski brought up a very good point about the shortage of folks. Unfortunately, what really hurts that process is that no matter what industry we look at, we have a large shortage of people available to take the jobs, which really multiplies and puts the pressure on our nursing homes and things like that. We do have a bill that we'll be passing out of the Health and Human Services, which will help do some things to help recruit more people in the industries of the nursing homes, assisted living, that type of thing, the home for the disabled, and assisted, well, like I say, the assisted living. There's going to be, we do have a bill that will be coming out that'll help with that, trying to get more people into training, try to get some wages raised, try to help with keeping people with some longevity. But we also have to make sure in the process of doing that we have a way of keeping that pipeline open and make these competitive jobs so we're not losing them to some of the other areas to where there's a lot less stress. You know, if you're going to go work at a nursing home, you really have to be dedicated to do that, because you're not doing it because of the salary. You're doing it because of the want to help people. And so when we have people that want to help these people, we need to make sure that we come up with a way of paying them to reward them for doing that. And I think that'll help some. To the Social Security part of it, that we did pass the first piece of our tax bill off the House Senate floor. That's sitting there at this point to be matched up with another piece. And in there, we did include the elimination of the income tax on Social Security. We currently have, last couple of years, we've taken some of the income tax off of some of the lower brackets on the Social Security, but this would remove the income tax on Social Security across the board.
You'll need to have Paul Marquardt on next week to talk about the tax issues. They're pretty complicated this year.
They are indeed. Senator Cwodzinski, do you want to address the issue of the Social Security taxes, or should we just move on?
Yeah, sure. It is probably, I agree with my colleagues. It's probably the one thing I've gotten the most emails and texts and voicemails this year, the number one issue. I don't know, that the Social Security tax is only on the top 40% of wage earners. So if you are in the lower 60% tax rate, you're collecting Social Security, you're not paying any tax on your Social Security. So that's a variable for me. I think the figure is $300 million is what the state takes in because of the Social Security tax. That's a lot of money. So people collecting Social Security are still helping out our schools and our roads and all the other people that rely on taxes. So, anyways, I'm on the fence on it, though. If it was a standalone bill and it came to me in the Senate, I don't know. I'd have to give it some serious thought.
So last week we ran into some scheduling problems, but we had a couple of viewers who were concerned about the $9 to $10 billion surplus and wondering what the progress has been made in making decisions about what to do about that surplus. And the concerns range from, concerned about perhaps sending too much back in terms of tax relief or spending too much money. And also some viewers were concerned about the issue of, do we really know how much surplus there really is? How much of it is one-time money? What might be happening in the future? Lots of really complicated issues in dealing with that surplus. And viewers were wondering what the status of those conversations are. Representative Lucero, I don't think we've started with you today. Let's put you up to bat with that difficult question, and you can take the ball and run with it. And then we'll go to Representative Hausman.
Well, one of the principles that I learned as a former city council member was government has obviously services that it must provide, and those services must be paid for. And and to be able to pay for those, there obviously has to be a method of raising revenue. But any amount that's above and beyond that is overtaxation. And last year, we fully funded state government, and we increased funding to record levels in Minnesota's history. And so even above and beyond state government being 100% completely fully funded, we are approaching a $10 surplus. That surplus represents overtaxation by or on hardworking Minnesota families and businesses across the state. And so what we need to do is this money needs to go back to those who overpaid. And so right now, my concern is not shoring up government, not making sure that there's a rainy day fund for government. My number one concern is the hundreds or over 1,000 constituents who've contacted me that are hurting because of the inflation that we're experiencing in the this Obama or Biden era. I'm sorry, rather the inflation that they're experiencing. The one other area of tax would be with the housing pressures that are happening. The taxable value for taxes payable next year are increasing anywhere I've seen 10 to 40%. And it's really going to create an even greater strain on people's budgets. Their budgets are not increasing 40%. But whether it be the cost of bread, milk, eggs, whether it be the property taxes you're going to have to pay next year, whether it be the cost of gasoline, this money that we've overcollected needs to go back to those that have overpaid. That's my priority.
Representative Hausman, your thoughts on the surplus and how to handle it?
Yes, my huge frustration here is that we haven't educated the public about this. We should constantly be saying projected surplus, projected surplus. In other words, a group of economists sat down and they looked at the next 2 years and they said, what do we think will happen in the next 2 years in revenue and expenses? And their point is, and by the way, that projection, their projection was made before Russia attacked Ukraine. That's when their projection was made, their projected surplus. And the person who learned this lesson about what it means to have a projected surplus was Jesse Ventura. Remember when he ran for office, and I think we talked about boatloads of money, and he was going to give it back, and then he became governor, and he said, oh, that's not money in the bank. You mean I would have to borrow money to give it back? Yes, that's right. You'd have to borrow money to give it back. Oh, well, then I guess we can't do that. That's the lesson we should have learned then. It's a projected surplus. If everything goes in the next 2 years the way those economists have predicted, we would have that amount of revenue over expenses. Yes, there is a certain amount of cushion in a bank at this point, but it is by no means a dependable amount that we can spend freely without without concern for the future. So a projected surplus, that's what it is, and it just means we've got to be paying attention very, very carefully.
Senator Dahms.
Well, I think Representative Lucero hit it on the head. We got a $9.3 billion surplus, and of that, approximately 40% is considered to be one-time money. So we're still looking at a $5-point-some billion surplus. Now, as Representative Hausman alluded to, that there is a projected surplus. But then let's be realistic about it. There is a projected surplus for the next couple of bienniums past this. So if we want to talk about projected, that's fine, but then let's look further out into it, not just this projection. Let's look at the projection for the next two bienniums. We still have a projected surplus. So with that said, I think that we do need to give some of this money back to the people that put the money in. It's kind of interesting, but only in government is it unfair to give the money back to the people that gave you the money. But with that said, I do think we need to look at giving part of that back, and we have a bill that we've introduced on the Senate floor, and it has been passed off the Senate floor, and that bill would decrease the income tax at the various levels, starting at the base level, and it would decrease that considerably. And so, as Representative Lucero talked about, inflation now is really eating into people's pocketbooks. And one of the last surveys I have seen, they're projecting a family of four for the basics. It's about $100 a week. Well, that's about $5,200 a year. And I can tell you that the income of these folks folks' incomes are not coming up equal to that type of inflation. So with that said, we probably are going to need to do something. And so let's reduce some of these taxes we're taking in based on that projection.
Senator Cwodzinski.
Yeah, we had a really spirited debate last week on the floor, or 2 weeks ago, whether we should give it back in the way of a waltz check, so to speak, in one-time money, or give permanent tax relief to people. And it was. I found it a pretty interesting debate. But basically, what Alice was saying about projected surplus, and no one has mentioned yet that I heard anyways, that the surplus doesn't factor in inflation just because the way we figure the surplus out. So and when the economists talked about the budget surplus. At that time, this was just a few months ago, inflation was at 2%. And now with it being around 7 to 8%, I think we need to take most of this money and put it away into a rainy day fund. And just because I think we're in perhaps the coming couple bienniums, we're going to be dealing with pretty interesting situation, and I'd hate to pass this on to the people that are going to follow Alice and in her after she retires, and give them this burden of trying to balance the budget given a looming deficit. But given that we do have a surplus, one of the things I've been trying to push hasn't gone anywhere, but I did introduce a bill that in 2003 the funding peaked for education for our schools, and we haven't kept up. We're about 16% behind where funding was in 2003, and I'd love to take about $1.5 billion of these dollars and bring 2003 funding for education to the levels that we could do in 2022 with just about maybe 1/8 of the, or 1/8 of the surplus. So that'd be what I would do with the money.
So, Reverend Lucero, I want to go back to you because we kicked off this conversation with you. Sometimes inflation is followed by recessions. When Alquist was governor of the state of Minnesota, there was a tax change that was beneficial to taxpayers. The recession that followed impacted our very progressive tax collection system, and there were, I think, 6 or 7 special sessions that were necessary that followed. Does this serious run up of inflation that we've experienced, and which may in fact be, this may just be the opening gambit here, it may get worse. Does the possibility of a recession down the road influence at all the discussion about how much should be returned to taxpayers?
100% for me anyway. I think it even makes it more forceful that we need to return, because and I think that recession is inevitable. Is it going to be later this year? Is it going to be next year? That I don't know, but it is inevitable. And inflation is clearly happening right now. And you know what also is happening right now is the rise in interest rates, which is going to impact nearly everything that we borrow or everything that we have on credit. And that's going to have a negative impact on everybody that's using credit. And so if and when a recession occurs, if and when inflation continues to skyrocket, somebody's going to have to tighten their belt. And I wholeheartedly disagree that this tax overcollection that we've already confiscated dollars from hardworking families and businesses, that we should just tuck it away and ensure that government is shored up in some indefinite future date. Right now, people are experiencing the pain. Right now, every gasoline tank fill up. Every time they go to the store to purchase their groceries. We need to get those dollars back into their hands. So if somebody's gonna have to tighten the belt, it needs to be government. Because in the opposite is we're having to force our businesses to tighten their belt, which comes in the way of layoffs, or we're having to force our families to tighten their belts, which comes in which much more detrimental impacts. So when belt tightening is going to happen, it needs to be us through cutting the size, scope, and spending of dollars in state government.
Representative Hausman, I'm going to give you just the last word on this, and then we'll move on to our last topic of the day. Anything further you'd like to say on this topic?
I think not. I think we've sort of
we've said enough. Okay. All right. So we only have a couple minutes left. Just very quickly, the governor today said that there would be no special session. Are we going to get the unemployment trust fund thing resolved? Representative Hausman, we'll start with you.
Well, that I have to tell you that has not been my issue at all. I'm just a peripheral observer of that, and so I don't have anything wisdom to say there, other than his comments. I think were not well received today.
Senator Cwodzinski, very quickly.
I think we will get it resolved.
Senator Dahms?
I think we'll get it resolved, but I found it very interesting that in a non-budgetary year, the governor is suggesting he will not do a special session. I don't know why that even came to surface, because we don't do special sessions. Why would we do a special session in a policy year to where we go sine die, we go home, and the money gets put to rest until the next year? I just don't see where that one just came out of left field. Just not having a special session.
Well, I can expect that the governor's comments were not well received, because of the 4 caucus, including the governor, then so 5, you have the Republican Senate majority who has passed and is promoting the fix for the UI trust fund. You've had the Senate Democrat minority vote in favor of that bill, a great number of them. You've had the governor pushing for it. You've had the House Republican minority in favor of that. So 4 of the 5, the one holdout, the one that stands in the way, is the Democrat House majority, are preventing the fix to the UI trust fund, which should have happened. And we've already seen the consequence of that, which is the tax increase passed along to our employers.
Representative Hausman, we have about a minute and a half left. I want to give the end of our program to you. You've been very gracious with your time with our viewers over the years. You've had a long career serving with people in your legislative district. Reflect a little bit on your service, that which is particularly notable to you, and let's go out with your thoughts at the end of this program.
Well, the theme I've been sounding, I think, is that I learned early on, we're a divided legislature, but whether you're in the majority or the minority, you should get things done for Minnesotans. And if I'm in the minority, I can't use that as my excuse. I still build relationships, I build trust between members, and I still have to accomplish things. I learned that early on from David Bishop, a Republican from Rochester. He and I worked together when I was in the minority, and we delivered a visitor center that links Como Zoo and Conservatory. It was an early learning experience, and since then I've had that similar experience with capital investment chairs, where when you work together, you can get things done across the partisan divide. And I think for us to continue to be clear about that becomes very important. Build relationships, build trust.
I want to thank all of our guests tonight. I want to particularly thank Representative Hausman for those very thoughtful words. I want to invite you, the viewers, to return in the weeks that follow. Next week, we have a special program involving an interview with 2 members of the Minnesota Supreme Court. Legislators will return on the following 3 Thursday evenings. We hope that you'll be with us for each of those programs. Thank you and good night.
Your Legislators is made possible by the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. From developing best practices that help farmers better protect our natural resources to the latest innovations in corn-based plastics, Minnesota corn farmers are proud to invest in third-party research leading to a more sustainable future for our local communities. Minnesota Farmers Union, standing for agriculture, working for farmers. On the web at mfu.org.